So, hi, Lawrence. Thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast today. We're super, super excited to have you on as our next guest. And, just to kick it off, before we get into all things marketing, just tell us a little bit about yourself and let the audience know about your career journey and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, hey Karina, thanks for having me. I've been in marketing my whole career. In undergrad, I was a communications major, went to business school. A couple years into my career, I switched from finance, banking to healthcare, and that was a conscious decision. And I've been in healthcare for the past 20 years. I started off with the state of California, working on a statewide public health campaign. I moved to hospitals shortly after that, and I've worked for hospitals really all over the United States. I currently work for Baptist Health out of Arkansas, largest healthcare system in this state. Prior to my 3.5 years here, I've spent 12 or so years with Kaiser Permanente, both in the Denver markets and nationally out of Oakland. I love healthcare. It's complicated, keeps me on my toes. I'm learning all the time. It is probably changing faster at this moment than in any moment I've seen in my career, and I'm doing my best to keep up.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to double down on that. What got you into healthcare in the first place?
I think we all have to find that thing that drives us, that thing that wakes you up in the morning and you're like, what am I doing today? And for me, the finance stuff is fun, but it wasn't driving my passion. The idea of healthcare and being able to actually deliver health to people and communities really energizes me. It wakes me up. It keeps me engaged. Healthcare has not disappointed in the 20 years I've been in it. It has not disappointed.
Well, that's a great thing. I mean, I think it's super important to find something that you're passionate about, like you're saying, and that niche of being in healthcare has definitely been something that I see in your background and what you just told us. It's been great for you. So, you know, looking back at that and a little bit into your background, I know that you recently, 3 years ago, stepped into the CMO seat, well, Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, I see. Now, tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you move from advertising into this seat now, and how was that transition for you?
Yeah, so with Kaiser Permanente, that's a big organization, 100 billion plus a year, 250,000 employees, 8 regions, multi-state operation. And so you very much specialize in your thing on the marketing side at a big organization. And I was the brand slash partnerships guy. I manage our strategic sports partnerships and others, as well as, my day job, the big brand of Kaiser Permanente, operating what was the Thrive campaign at the time for a number of years. So I wanted to expand my purview. I sought out opportunities that would not just keep me squarely in that marketing brand space, but it will allow me to use other parts of my brain,
Yeah.
the strategy part, the comms part. I also manage our community health work right now, our community benefit work, which is always complicated and very much gets me even closer to the care delivery part of the organization. I'm a hospital administrator, and so that's part of my role is not just thinking about the brand or the marketing, but really thinking about the full scope of the business. As a marketing function within a hospital, really you're managing multiple different small businesses. These different service lines, whether it's orthopedics, cardiology, they all really run as a small business, and they all have to have P&Ls that are in the black. And I will sit down with different business leads, hospital presidents, and talk about their full business, strategically, not just their marketing, not just their branding, or what kind of patients they're bringing in, what service lines are more advantageous to that hospital, how do those service lines interact. All of the business stuff that you can imagine that's part of a hospital is really what I spend my time on today. And of course, I get paid for bringing that marketing expertise into those conversations.
Yeah, and being that, in the hospital system, like you're saying, there's multiple avenues, like you just mentioned. Now, being that there's multiple avenues, I'm wondering now, like, how do you tell different brand stories or, position each, department from a marketing perspective? How does that look?
Yeah, that's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Figuring that out. Yeah, I really think about it as you have the master brand, right? And you're leading that master brand with all sorts of, brand campaigns and initiatives that really talk about the organization as a whole. And then you are driving that home and really getting into the consumer, the patient, with these other campaigns, these campaigns that are really lead generation efforts. And that's where you think about those stories, whether it's a patient story of a success that a department has had, or it's talking about the latest and greatest that this department is being able to offer. It's There's room for that big brand and then these sub brands essentially that are under it, and really being able to build and develop those sub brands and drive business. I mean, we link the work that we do on the marketing side, you know, not just to actions or clicks, as it used to be in the old days, but
Yeah.
right down to, all right, hey, we marketed to that individual 7 times, had 7 marketing interactions, and it resulted in these services, and lining up that right cadence, those right touch points, and really using your data to figure out what's working and what's not is what marketing is all about today in healthcare.
No, yeah, I 100% agree. I think besides healthcare in any industry, data is key for sure. We can't just be putting out strategies like that without measuring exactly the results that we're putting in. So, I mean, just like you mentioned, I want to touch upon that patient story that, let's say, you utilize in a department to really put forward and like drive those leads that you're saying. Now, with a patient story, that also creates an emotional connection. So, what can you tell us about, that behavior, like maybe that consumer behavior that you're actually touching upon when you're integrating that within your marketing strategies?
Yeah, I studied anthropology in school, and I often get the question like, why anthropology? What does that have to do with marketing?
Yeah.
And it really is about human behavior, Karina. It is about understanding why people do what they do, and how do you, as a marketer, move them to action. And
Absolutely.
so we all like to think about ourselves as these super rational creatures that are, in our brains making these uh, plus minus lists, and we're going with the thing that ultimately balances out. But really, we are forgetting about that emotional connection. And good advertising, whether 20 years ago or today, connects emotionally with individuals. And good brands, right? Good branding is really that emotional connection that kind of transcends the reasoning part. I'm still going to go with brand X because I have a connection to brand X, because my history with brand X, because I see myself in that ad that I saw, and I have a emotional resonance with that particular brand, and so we are always trying to tap into that, not in a manipulative way, but in a healthy way where we can allow our patients, our consumers, to see themselves in our brand, right? And so we are always espousing what we call our ethos, right? What we believe as an organization. We believe in this, and connecting that to what our patients believe in, right? We believe in, living a healthy life, that quality lifestyle, that ability to be able to put your family first. We believe in service as an organization. All those things that we're trying to pull out in these patient stories that you're asking me about, right? So telling that story, pulling that thread all the way through to who we are as an organization is really what allows our brand to resonate.
No, I think everything you said is 100%, on the mark right there. I think a lot of people tend to forget that at the end of the day, marketing is all about creating that emotional connection that you just said. It's not about just the brand or the logos or the posts that you're putting out. It's much, much deeper than that. And I think that it's pretty cool that you studied, anthropology. That's something that you don't really hear often. And And I know our listeners here are going to be like, that's a very interesting route to take and something that they can definitely, move forward with and maybe take advice from. So now, with that, I wanted to see what is your take on adopting any new marketing strategies, any new marketing technology out there that you're currently utilizing or looking to implement within the strategy that you guys currently have?
Yeah, that's a good one. It is tough sledding right now, to be honest with you. I probably get solicited multiple times a day on various different Martech stack pieces. And so we just have undergone a real reimagining of how we use our marketing materials, our marketing technology, in a way that will allow us to be more dynamic. And what I mean by that is, the days when you could sign a contract for 5 years for that piece of software and you're good, you don't have to think about it for 5 years, are gone. I mean, you really do have to reevaluate your marketing stack consistently, um, and make sure that it's driving the results that it needs to drive. Uh, for us, that marketing connection with your processes is the paramount piece. And we try to really iterate in how we're thinking about which technologies that we're using. And so now I will sign a contract for 6 months. Sign a contract for a year, as we test out, is this thing what it actually is built to be?
Oh yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, technology is constantly evolving, so shorter contracts to test it out is for sure the way to go.
Yeah, and that's how we'll get started. So I'll do those short contracts, and then I'll try to extend those longer as it's needed. But the world where these different tech pieces stand alone in their own silos is gone. Like I need all of this stuff to work in concert together. And so we've done things like pull in our data lake, and have that in house, and then every piece of technology that I bring on has to connect into that, right? Our CRM is not just connected to that one project anymore. It has to be connected to our data lake. It has to be connected to everything that we do. That audience that we have, we used to talk about it in terms of like, have that infinite audience. It really is finite. We were very close to a point to being able to define every single piece of our addressable market, every individual in that market. So we can see, hey, if I hit you with that orthopedic campaign, hit you with the new movers campaign, that primary care campaign, that cardiology campaign, we can see your interactions with all those campaigns collectively and of course individually. And that's really the transformation that marketing's done in the last couple of years, is really having that holistic view that you can drive down to that individual data point. I'm not just targeting your household. I'm using technology to get right into that individual in the household. And we know what those different individuals,
Yeah.
and how they're interacting with our content.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. Now, one thing that you mentioned, MarTech and all of this coming up with technology, I'm assuming like, do you work closely with the IT team? What does that look like? Because I'm sure being connected to new CRM, maybe even utilizing AI at some point, like you want to make sure you're following company policies, the compliance that comes behind that. There's just so many questions. Like, what is that? How does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's both a tough one and a really good one. Um, our IT team has been fabulous for us, right?
That's
They've been
amazing.
excellent partners over the years, and they are, up to their eyeballs in new work and new tech. And a lot of that tech is on the care delivery side, right? How we administer care, online appointments, being able to book appointments. The MarTech stack is almost in concert and on top of that. And so more and more you're seeing folks in the marketing realm, the CMO, being charged with owning that AI piece, owning that overall consumer patient experience piece. Because a lot of the skill set that you need to really own how that experience goes, right? Those various different touch points, whether it's online or offline, and how all of that connects. The marketing team traditionally has the skill set to manage, right? How do you communicate in those moments? What needs to be communicated? What's too much? What's too little? And so, what I've seen in the last couple of years is marketing, and that's very much the case for us, owning that overall digital strategy.
Wow.
Um, and so helping bring the rest of the organization together to really connect these different, otherwise disparate pieces of technology and AI, um, so that it works together. And so, yes, as we're working on that tech piece, we very much are partnering with our IT partners, um, and the various other partners on the clinical delivery side as well, to execute our digital strategy.
No, yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like even in the healthcare space, I've heard, at least from the tech side, and maybe you can even chime in on this too. It's like they're even having, integrating AI agents and AI chatbots in the healthcare system to answer the phones, make appointments, like, and then I'm sure, there must be some sort of crossover there with the marketing team because there's just so much going on in that space. Like, what do you see there, and how is there a crossover within your team? Like, are you seeing that currently at where you're at?
Yeah, healthcare is traditionally behind, right? We are not the necessarily the early adopters of this new tech. And these AI chatbots and things are very much in that category.
Yeah.
Um, However, uh, the that stuff has been out for a little bit, right? It keeps getting better and better, and the expectations from consumers are, hey, when I have a problem, you're going to help me solve it, right? I'm not going to, hey, have a problem at 9 p.m. this evening and expect you to get back to me in 2 days with a solution. Like, you need a solution real time. I
Yeah.
mean, that's where you what you get everywhere else in our modern life, right? I want to order something online. I don't feel like getting up and going to the store. I'll have it delivered overnight.
Yeah.
And we're all in that space, and healthcare is struggling to catch up. And so, some of those AI pieces, the chatbots, are part of that solution. And I think what we're all trying to figure out in the healthcare space is exactly how does it play, right? What is that seamless connection between the chatbot and a triage nurse, right? Someone that's going to say, hey, um, here's your different presenting ailments, and here's what you should do as your next step to get the support that you need, right? The chatbot can be very helpful in some of that, right? Here's where you go for a solution, and then, when the chatbot is not helpful or when it's reached its capability capacity, how do you offload that in a seamless way that the patient feels respected and heard and receives what they need, and that's what we're lining up right now, is that full stop experience, right? Hey, I dealt with a chatbot. All right, I got what I needed there, but I actually need an appointment. Can I now be transferred to a real face to face video chat with a nurse or a physician? Or, hey, can I click one button and have an appointment booked for later on today or tomorrow morning? And that whole connection is what we call that experience, right? And so you come to that appointment live, or you see it online, and then what happens next? Where's your prescription, right? How does that AI even help you figure out
Yeah.
how to get that prescription to your front door? And so healthcare holistically is trying to figure that part out, and that's where honestly that's the hardest work I'm doing right now in my role, and it's probably the most rewarding as well, because I you are seeing quickly, um, in very much real time, advancements that we're making, incremental and larger steps that are making an impact on people's lives and health.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like another thing too is like now with the whole AI thing coming up and the chatbots that you're talking about, it all kind of goes back into like that human centric approach, and the face to face emotional connection that you need with the patients, and especially in the healthcare system. I mean, like having AI do that, I mean, it could save the company a lot of costs, a lot of time, and automate some few things. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the people. I feel like it's very people focused when it comes to healthcare. So I could see why that's a little bit of a juggle right now.
It is, yeah. And, as a large hospital system, we have traditionally owned the relationship with our patients. What you see in a lot of industries is that relationship being bifurcated, being cut off,
Yeah.
right? And some other entity or disruptor comes in the middle of it, and owns the relationship. And if you own the relationship, you direct where care goes. And so we're very much trying to stay at the forefront of that meaningful human connection with our patients. And you have some, really interesting players. I won't mention names necessarily on this podcast, but that are promising you for, $100, $200 a year, you can have concierge service right on your app. And when you have a problem, you just click the app, and they're not necessarily making money off that service, but what they are doing is owning the relationship. And so if when you have a problem, the first thing you think of is this brand, and you go there, they might not make any money off of solving that immediate problem, but they will off of directing that care. And I think that's the play that they're running right now is, hey, if we just own the connection, right? If it's all seamless on that same app that you buy, whatever from, whatever you need, you can also grab your healthcare from that same app. Then when you need something, you'll just come to us. And I think that is really the challenge for health delivery systems right now, whether it's small or large, is keeping that relationship and that human connection with their patients and not ceding that to other digital national brands.
No, yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, human to human interaction is the best. And speaking of that, and speaking of AI in marketing, from a marketing perspective, what's your take on AI generated ads and how does that play into the healthcare system? Like, are you seeing it kind of come in as a trend? Are you seeing it not really because of that human interaction that you guys need? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, another great question. I'm torn on this one. So I did not expect to be having to make these decisions on advertising creative right now in 2025. But we're already trying to figure some of this stuff out because AI has advanced so drastically, even just this year, where you have content that last year I could kind of tell that was generated AI, but now it's like, wait a minute, I really can't tell in that spot. And so there's a number of ads out right now that have taken that route that are completely AI generated, and they're not necessarily telling consumers in those spots that this is none of these people you see in this spot, nothing you actually see in this spot is real. It's all computer generated.
Yeah.
That's not what they're leading with. There's no regulations that require them to do that, which is probably the scary part is as consumers, we are losing the ability to discern real from fabricated. So that said, where we're landing as a system, as a hospital, and where I'm landing as a marketer that's leading these efforts are that there are select places where AI generated content can make sense. For example, we're shooting a spot next month that's going to feature uh, student athletes. It's an NIL deal that'll feature student athletes in their current college uniforms and doing their sport and like looking like heroes. And we're also going to show moments of them in their childhood, right? When they first picked up their sport, when they first swung the bat, when they first swung their first golf club, when they first started running on the track or playing football, playing catch with dad in the backyard.
Yeah.
The way I would have traditionally shot those scenes, kind of retro looking scenes, is grabbing a child actor and his or her parents, and then shooting that scene as if it was that athlete. And now we're going to AI generate those spots. And my logic there is we were already trying to suspend disbelief relative to, hey, we're pretending that this child actor is that student athlete when they were younger, and now we're going to say, okay, we can actually take an image, a still image of that athlete as a youth, and animate it in a way that they move and act. And I've seen this technology; it is indiscernible. You cannot tell that it's generated by AI. And it's just it's a 2 3 second clip in a longer spot, but it allows us to tell that story of how we've been there throughout the life moments of this athlete, as the support, as the health piece that's enabled them to do what they do and thrive at such a high level. So we're excited about that. Karina, what I would not do in AI right now is I would not use AI to produce an image with a patient and doctor. Right? That's a line too far for us. Even though we could easily do it, that breaks the rule of authenticity. Right? I want that authentic relationship, and if I'm showing a fake doctor on TV in a video, then that just doesn't make sense. And that's not authentic to who we are as an organization and what we deliver and what we care about, and our service and our connection to our consumers and our patients. So there are lines we are not crossing, and the conversation right now is, where are those lines at? What makes sense for AI generated content, and really what we need to not do.
No, yeah, I think that that's super cool, the campaign that you guys are going to be doing for the NIL deals. I mean, generating, I've seen that too, pictures into video. It's insane. And the way that's moving is just crazy, but in a good way.
Yeah.
But I think that you are absolutely right about the healthcare space. Like, I mean, the doctors and the patients, I would assume that's very authentic, and you'd want to keep that at the core, so that you build that trust with your patients and the consumers that are going to the hospital.
Yes.
Now, being that you are integrating AI generated video content in an ad or a campaign like that, um, would you say that marketers risk losing a little bit of that authenticity that you mentioned if they lean too heavily on that, in different industries, let's say?
Yeah, yes, that is a possibility, and I think that's a real reality that we have to grapple with and ask ourselves. Um, you know, for especially for different brands. If I'm a beer brand that's just showing guys drinking beer and having fun, maybe I can get away with some of that in certain spaces. Maybe social media is okay for that. Maybe even some sports game kind of media placement is fine for that. But I think if you're dealing with more serious brands that by definition are saving lives, that are touching people in different ways, I think you have to consider, like, even more cautiously about using AI generated. And if I can't predict the future, but where I see it going is a lot of folks, because you can generate this AI stuff for so cheap right now,
I know,
right?
it's crazy.
Production is still hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can build an AI clip for a couple $1,000s today, right now. So you're going to see a lot of those brands be like, oh, okay, I'll just save $500,000 on production and do this completely via AI. And that can make sense, especially for these up and coming startup type brands that don't have the budget, that are more scrappy and trying to just get off the ground. But I think for the more established brands, that won't make a lot of sense for them. And you don't want to lose that connection that you have, and kind of that brand promise that is inherent within the advertising, that is supposed to be authentic.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, marketing is all about authenticity, the trust, you know, making sure that you are connecting with the audience and with the consumer. So, I mean, AI is up and coming real fast, right? So we just have to, I feel like as marketers, stay at the forefront of that. You're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so being that AI is on the come up like that, and just, new trends, new strategies, everything is like changing so fast. What's one piece of advice you'd give future marketers, or maybe someone that is stepping into a CMO seat like yourself, advice within the next 1 to 3 years? Because I know people typically look at the 5 year mark, but it's shortened up a bit with the technology piece. So, what's some advice?
Yeah. So my biggest advice would be don't get so caught up in the specific technology. The technology that you're learning today is going to change. It'll change a year from now. Really what you want to do, especially as you're starting out and building your expertise, is get good at critical thinking and strategy. That is always going to be a commodity that is needed. Even if we all go to AI and everything's out, but we will still need people to be able to think for themselves and strategize, understand how business works, understand human behavior, what moves people to action, right? What influences them, what drives them, and how to connect into it. And so it's great to learn these technologies, but I would not hinge my career on any one technology right now.
Yeah.
I would very much hinge it on being able to think strategically and connect that back with what we're all trying to do, and that's make connections, authentic connections with other human beings.
I completely agree. I feel like, you know, it's a little scary, like you said earlier, seeing how AI is coming in and just technology in general is. But at the end of the day, it's all about the relationship. It's all about, connecting with a human, connecting with someone that's on the other side of the screen. So I definitely think our listeners are going to appreciate that piece of advice you just gave. And now, as we wrap up, I always love to ask this question, and it's advice to your younger self. So, what piece of advice would you give yourself early on in your career that you wish you knew now or back then?
Oh man, yeah, it's fun to imagine that the most valuable asset you will have in your career are the connections you make, right? Kind of like we were just talking about.
Yeah,
And so, approach every relationship as if it was a long-term relationship. The you can very much get caught up in the transactional piece of the marketing world, right? Oh, I need a video. I need this. I need this ad. I need to buy this. Um, it's beneficial. I mean, to engage people at that human level and seek out connection, and make those connections, as if they might be your best friend in 20 years,
yeah, you
because
know,
you don't know, but you won't regret investing in the people around you and connecting with them. I mean, because those are the things, you know, 20 years from now, 20 years ago, I somewhat remember a lot of the projects I was working on, right? The specific details of them, no. But do I remember the people? Do I still have connections with those people? Have those connections furthered my career and made my life better? Yes.
absolutely. I love that. I mean, connections, like we've been talking about this the whole episode, and I love it because at the end of the day, I mean, people look past that a lot when it comes to marketing or just in general, right? Like it's all about relationships. It's all about connections and it's all about the human at the end of the day.
Well said.
So, this has been such an insightful conversation, Lawrence. I really appreciate you joining us today. And I know our audience will be taking lots of notes like I have been right now. And yeah, we're super excited to see everything you do in your work moving forward. So, thank you so much.
Karina, thanks for having me. Good luck to you at Social Craft. You're doing great work and really enjoyed this episode.
Thank you. Appreciate it.